Hey everyone, so we've laid some groundwork and now it is time to get into the really good stuff. So a lot of investors who are already buying and flipping properties hopefully don't know some of this stuff. Maybe this is kind of the intermediate to higher level investor information. So we're going to talk about assignments of contracts, or in other words, wholesaling. There might be other words, other terms to use for this type of investment, but we're going to talk about them as assignments. Remember to always check and make sure that what we're talking about today is legal in your state before you try it. Consult a real estate attorney or somebody who knows the law in your state before trying any of these things. So that being said, an assignment of contract is where you get a contract for a property. So you have a purchase and sale agreement. You say you're going to close in 30 days. You now own that contract. You don't yet own the property. So the seller is on title and you are the buyer who is going to close, let's say by May 30th. So you have 30 days or so to purchase the property. They've agreed to sell it to you under the terms that you have in this contract. So let's say for some reason or other you do not go to closing. Sometimes you might have too much going on. You don't have another opportunity to take on an investment property. Maybe your private lender is all booked up. They have too many loans out there and they can't give you any money right now. So for some reason you can't close. Please, 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 if you're going to go under contract, if you're going to make an offer on a property, do intend to purchase. Don't just go under contract with the intent of selling it. It'll become known pretty quickly that that's what you're doing, and it's just not a very kind thing to do to everyone involved. So don't buy a property, don't attempt to purchase a property without the intention of closing. You can decide that you're going to assign it, but if you can't assign it for some reason, follow through, purchase the property. Otherwise, you kind of end up with a bad reputation. So let's say you're purchasing by May 30th and you have, let's say, 40 days to purchase. So you've got a little bit of time and for some reason you can't purchase it, but you know it's a good deal and you do want to make a little bit of money on it. So what you can do is you can go to your investor friends. Let's say you have met some of these people who are also doing what you're doing. I think it's always a good idea. I mean, in a sense, they're your competition, but you can also work together on deals like this. So you go to your competition and you tell them that you have this contract. You show them the value. Maybe you've worked with your realtor and you found out an after repair value on the property. And then they are the ones who end up purchasing the property. So you sell this contract. You sell this piece of paper to them saying that they can purchase. They have to obviously see the value in the property in order to want to do this. But if there is value there, you can usually find somebody to buy it. If you don't know of any investors, I've mentioned before going and finding the signs that say we buy houses and calling those people and just saying, I have a good deal. Are you interested in purchasing the assignment? A lot of investors will know what that means. If they don't, you can explain it to them. So for instance, I had one under contract. The after repair value was about $300,000. And I had it under contract for $245,000. So this is what the contract said, which shows that there weren't really a lot of repairs that needed to be done. Not a lot of work. It was a very nice home, nice neighborhood. We've talked about how to find a good investment property to flip, and so I had it under contract for $245K. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of equity in this property. But I didn't end up being able to purchase it. At the time, I didn't have a private lender. So I sold it to somebody. I sold him the contract for $10,000. So walking in, getting the house under contract, turning around and selling it for $10,000. I ended up with money in my pocket, and it turned out to be a pretty good deal for me and for the buyer. The buyer ended up closing on the property, putting about maybe $1,000 work into it. I never did really talk to him afterwards. I think it was actually on a TV show. They put it on and flipped it, and I never saw it. But I don't think they put too much money into it, and then they turned around and sold it. And of course, they got their equity back out of it at close. So it turned out to be a win for the buyer of the contract. It turned out to be a win for me, kind of the middleman. And of course, the seller was happy because the sale proceeded and it went to title and it closed on May 30th. The thing that you need to know is that all of the terms of the contract will remain the same. So whatever we wrote down in the contract, I'm selling it as is that way. So if you're purchasing and you're thinking, I might end up assigning this, you want to think about the end result, the end buyer, and whether they're going to agree to those terms. The other thing there is to know is that you need to make sure to make the contract assignable. There should be a little box that says that it may be assigned, may or may not be assigned. If you have that form in your state, your form might be different, but on my purchase and sale agreement, it does say that this can be assigned to somebody else. And then there's also an additional form that says that you are assigning the property. So make sure you have that documentation. If you're working with a realtor, they'll be able to find it. They might have never, most of the realtors that I've talked to have never done an assignment. They don't really understand how they work. So you might have to explain, yeah, there should be another form that says that I can, or that I am assigning this to someone. And then what I did, I've done this a couple of times, and I just took the contract to the bank with the person who was purchasing the contract. They got me a cashier's check for the amount that I needed. So in this case, it was $10,000. We signed over the assignment. I signed it over into his name, saying that he was going to buy it. And then he signed that contract too and handed me the check. We shook hands. We walked away, and he ended up closing on the property. So I was no longer anywhere in this situation. I was also the realtor, so on that end, I had to do new paperwork that had his name on it. He basically had to go through and initial and sign everything that I had initialed and signed. But as the buyer, as the intermediate buyer, I was out of the picture. As the realtor, I constructed kind of a new, just basically where he went through and re-signed everything. So again, I walked away happy. The seller walked away happy, getting her money from the deal. The buyer of the contract walked away happy because he had instant equity, and he sold it as a beautiful fixed up home to somebody who also ended up happy. So win, 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 win. Those can be done again in certain states under certain circumstances, and just remember to follow that everything that's in here needs to be agreed upon. I sent this contract over to the people that I've assigned them to. I just send it over to them for them to make sure that they read it and understand it before they agree to purchase the contract from me. This can work in a lot of situations. I had one under contract. Actually, this is where our last video about finding a good realtor comes in, because I had it under contract to purchase personally. I didn't end up purchasing. It was valued at $225. This was a few years ago, and so everything has gone up since then. But I had it under contract for $160. So there's quite a bit of equity in here, especially at that low price. And I couldn't buy, but I just gave it to one of my investor clients. I just said, hey, do you want this? I'm not going to end up purchasing. We've done work together. I appreciate your business. Here you go. And he was extremely happy to take that. At the time, it was valued at $225. It's gone up in value now. And he's actually held on to that one for a while, so he's going to sell it later. And now he has quite a bit more equity in it, obviously. But you can see where all of this really can work out in the right circumstances, as long as you're not out there making offers on property. The contract actually says that you do intend to purchase. So as long as your intentions are good, you intend to purchase, you're not just getting it under contract to see if you could sell it, because that's kind of shady. So just be considerate about that. Make sure that your realtor knows how to do those and understands it. Make sure that you trust the person that you're working with on the assignment, and hopefully things will go well for you. Thanks and good luck.